And welcome back to Stories from the River. I'm your host, Charlie Malouf, and I'm joined today by two return guests again. Will Luke, our Director of Retail Operations, and Kellie Jones, our Manager of Retail Operations. Will, welcome back.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you. Kellie, welcome back.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
All right. You guys ready to talk about some retail ops?
Of course.
Yes.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
Okay, for a primer for our audience, Will, tell us again, remind us what retail operations is and does for Broad River.
Yeah, I think I want to come at this through the lens of Gandalf, and we've talked about this before. So our retail performance team has a monthly award, the Yoda Award, and they had that for a few years. And I think at some point Kellie and I said, well, why don't we have anything for retail operations? And we were thinking about, okay, it's kind of this like fantasy. It's a fantasy theme. So what are other like fantasy characters that maybe embody what our team does? Mm-hmm. And we thought about, what does the retail ops team do? Oftentimes they're kind of the guardrails and the speed bumps in the store to make sure we're compliant and protecting the guest experience. And so as we were thinking through different fantasy characters, Gandalf, his catchphrase is "You shall not pass." Mm-hmm. And so that kind of immediately stuck. And I think it kind of embodies what the retail operations folks in the store do, with all of kind of the processes and the compliance and really staying close to the guest experience in the store, making sure everything is smooth and efficient so that the retail operations team can write more business.
Yeah, we could not do what we do without retail operations, full stop. I mean, that's super clear. And you guys both have a lot of tenure in the system right now as well. Will, you've been with Broad River over 6 years, in retail operations since 2019?
Since 2019.
And Kellie, you started in retail operations. You've been at the River now for 7.5 years, right?
Correct.
And you've been in your current role for about 3 years now, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about people. So, I mean, you two are the leaders in retail operations, but you've had some stellar performances, and it seems like we've got a lot of tenure in the team, right?
It's the thing I love most about my job. And, you can look at all the wins and all the projects and all the innovation, but I wrote some of these stats down because to me, at least, they're so unbelievable given my experience in retail. I looked it up yesterday that we have about 30% of our retail ops team that's been with Broad River for over 5 years. So what that speaks to with kind of the wisdom and the shared knowledge and the loyalty and the dedication, and when it comes to training, we can be at like a 2.0 or a 3.0 level instead of constantly kind of being in that churn state. I know, I don't know what day this will be released, but yesterday, as of today, we're filming, was Beth Queen's 13th year with Broad River. Wow. So obviously a legend at Broad River and someone we really value on our team. And then when we look at turnover, which is a metric that we track, last year we had less than 20% turnover on our team, and that was a huge reduction year over year. So what all that leads to is that we love the stability of our team and how that allows us to there's camaraderie, there's trust, there's unity, there's shared training, there's shared experience, and that's what really makes it fun.
Yeah, and this is across 31 stores. And I just got to go back to a couple I don't want the audience to miss this. You said over 30% of your staff has been with the company over 5 years.
Correct.
That's pretty strong.
Right. And I'm not even counting. I mean, if we want to get to the nitty gritty, I think a lot of our top people end up working in other roles in the company. So one of the things we've started tracking is promotions out of retail ops. And there's so many folks that are still, they're leading other programs in the company. Mm-hmm. They're on other teams in the company that got their start in retail ops, which really is a great way to learn all things about the company. And then I'd be remiss, Kellie, do you want to talk about our senior REM program?
Yes, our senior REM program. So we created this program in 2022 mm-hmm.
To
parallel our HFE or expert program. Mm-hmm. So basically it's based on tenure and performance. And we started off with last year with just 6 senior REMs, but we more than doubled that and added 7 more people in the last year. So just tremendously amazing. And that just continues with that tenure, just continuing to drive that.
What does it mean to be a senior REM? Is it a pay raise? Is it more responsibilities? Are you covering more duties? Are you helping? Are you a trainer or a guide? Like, what exactly does that mean?
Yeah, so it varies person by person and how they want to attack that, because we do have some people that want to be a senior REM, and then that's their top level of where they want to go. Mm-hmm. But we do have some that want to do more. So we do use this to help them learn more leadership skills and help develop them into the next level. We do a lot of different things. Sometimes they help with training. Mm-hmm. They also, help lead the region when like the associate manager's on vacation. Mm-hmm. So they do a lot of those things. And then
I think to your question, the baseline qualifiers are minimum 2 years with the company. And then we have some elite performance tiers, which just like the retail performance tiers, you set the tier and you think, oh, is this even attainable? And then 6 months or a year later, it's like, oh, maybe we set that too low, and we gotta raise that up. And so all of the folks have hit kind of those across the board, with the exception of what Kellie's talking about is folks that have taken the initiative to impact greater than their store. Sometimes we've put folks into that role, but by rule, it isn't necessarily a leadership. There's not kind of by rule added responsibility or added managerial ownership of other stores. If they just get to that level and they can maintain excellence, we love that. We're super happy about that. And it does, there's no change to their base pay, but it does qualify them for a higher bonus tier.
Okay, got it. Now, we were going back through some of the call outs, and we said, 30%, 5 years or more. You said some of them have even moved into other roles. It could be sales audit. It could be IT. It could be the sales floor or management, right? So we've had different, it could be service. Yeah. It's a great way to kind of entree into the company. Yeah. But then the other stat, I just don't want to gloss over. I want to go back to it. Your turnover in retail operations was less than 20% last year. Now, retail in general, I think averages around 68, 70% across all retail. And we've, some folks now you're on the sales floor. These are odd hours. This is not a Monday through Friday job per se. And what was the goal? I mean, I've seen retail be well over 100%. To be under 20%, you talk about stability, driving efficiencies. What was your goal for 2023, if you had one, and what was it previous years?
Yeah, I don't know that we had a stated goal, but we knew it was an opportunity. And we're going to go on a little detour here, but I guess about a year and a half ago, we added the REM Program, the Associate Manager of Retail Operations, and that was, I think, coming out of pulse survey or engagement survey feedback, where either the reasons people were leaving were the amount of kind of the training, and they came into an incredibly hard role, and there was so much they had to learn so quickly, and that was overwhelming. And so we knew we had to make an investment there where there was more boots on the ground, relationship-based training accessible. And so I think that number is really a testament to the REM Program, where we have 3 associate managers, one in kind of each region. Trina shares 2 regions, but they have a smaller group that they build relationships with. They're accessible. They can train side by side. And it really, what it's helped with is get people through that 6 months chunk. Mm-hmm. So I know when we looked at it 2 years ago, when we looked at our turnover in general, the great majority of our turnover was in 6 months. So,
which is often the case.
Right. So I know that's what our intention was, is how do we get people past 6 months?
Yeah. And so what was it in 2022 or previous years?
In 2022, it was double. So it's about 40%.
So you more than cut your turnover in half. And I think and this is having, we had to get the financials healthy enough to be able to layer in these roles, but ultimately it's like a long-term payoff, because once you have these associate managers and adding more training and more assistance to the field and to the team, you see, I mean, it just pays off with lower turnover. Turnover is expensive. So that's how it pays off for the long term. Yeah. So kudos to you so low turnover, a lot of promotions, double the number of senior retail experienced managers. And then anything else on people, because that's a great story, a great way to start this episode.
Well, you touched on it. So we had, by my math, we had 4 people that moved into other roles in the company in 2023. And we actually already have 2 so far this year.
Oh, wow.
So a lot of folks, I think here's the beauty of it. They start in the retail operations role. Maybe they're afraid of sales because sales can be intimidating for a lot of people. And so we hire these great people. Maybe they're not ready for sales yet, but they're in the store and they're watching it and they say, well, I could do that. I want to try my hand in that. And so that's exciting for us that we can give them that opportunity.
That's really cool. Okay. People and then culture, right? People make the culture. And you were talking about, Gandalf and I think there's a story there. And offline, we were talking about like your chat. So you guys are always chatting through Teams or something like that. So you've got a group chat going on. Now, when you have a lot of stability, sometimes, I've heard this phrase, "Hey, you can't. I know how to do it. Don't tell me something new. You can't teach an old dog new tricks." Is the metaphor. But you guys have pushed forth, leaning on our core value of innovation, a lot of change. And have you found your team like abrasive to change or embracing change?
Almost completely embracing. I mean, I can't think of a scenario where someone's, at least in retail ops, where someone said like, oh, can we just go back to doing that old paper manual way? And I think the reason for that is Kellie and I both love efficiency, right? Like it's how can we make it better? How can we improve it? How can we simplify it? How can we make it quicker? And so the folks that have been here longer often remember like the super manual, super cumbersome way. Remember even thinking of like the open order analysis when they used to have to print it off in Excel and sort it manually. I don't even know that they had to compile it themselves. And now you just get a report that serves it up to you and it color codes the opportunities. So instead of you having to go through 2,000 orders to find the 3 that maybe needs to be fixed, now you just show up, hit a button, and it's like, here's 3 orders that need to be fixed. So I think the folks that have been here longer appreciate that because they have the context for where we came from and where we're going.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, talk to us about culture. Kellie, talk to us about culture a little bit.
Yeah. So one of the big things that we drive is, Will talked about it, is Gandalf. So the retail operations award that we have every month, which is a great goal for our team. They're very competitive. Sometimes against themselves, sometimes against each other. It's kind of fun. But it's a really great program that we have. We've got 2 different awards for our REM teams. We with Gandalf, we have Gandalf the Gray for our smaller stores, which we started in May. And then we have Gandalf the White for the larger stores. So each store gets an opportunity to win, each month, which is really awesome.
Well, what are they judged on? What are you judged on to win Gandalf? Yeah,
so we have just our primary KPIs that we look at. So we have missing data and order accuracy. Google is one of the top ones. Inventory. We had MPS as well, and my mind just...
OOA, DocuWare.
Yes,
yeah.
OOA.
Oh, okay, so
open order analysis issues.
So when you say Google, you mean Google reviews?
Yes, response rate. So we judged it off of response rate. So one thing that we do with our partners is they send out text messages and emails to our guests. So we're able to use that to create a response rate for them.
And what do you mean by OOA?
Our open order analysis. So based off of... So Will mentioned that we have a report every day that we pull up, and it gives us opportunities or potential opportunities, because sometimes they're not actually an opportunity. It could be just rescheduling an order with a guest because something happened, or could be there's no some money needs to apply to order because it's a phone order. But we need to check that each day, and if they leave at the end of the month, if they have issues, or at the end of the week, that's where those issues come from. And
you mentioned Net Promoter Score, but, which is a gauge of whether a customer would recommend us to a family, friend. It's a gauge of how well we're doing on the customer experience. And you're doing all these things to ensure the order is input correctly as the guest expected it, as we intended it, so that it can be delivered properly, correctly, which influences the customer experience.
Yep, and that's our ultimate goal with the open order analysis, is to eliminate any potential issues so the guests get what they want when they want.
So how competitive is Gandalf?
It's very competitive. Every month it comes down to just a very small percentage of the winners.
Okay.
Over the
sometimes like 0.01. We actually had, I think, a recount this year where we had to go back and check the decimal point.
Oh, really?
And it affected the outcome of the result.
That's pretty funny.
Because someone went and recalculated it themselves.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. Well, how does that build culture?
Well, it's fun.
Okay.
It's a fun competition, so they enjoy it. We actually send out a Gandalf award to them that they win, and they enjoy it. They take pictures with them. They get a certificate.
Yeah.
They enjoy it a lot.
Yeah.
So.
I think there's some gamification to it as well, where it's, if you think of the open order analysis as, here's any order that needs manual intervention or the guest is possibly going to be impacted. When you see that number, it's just like a video game. If you're at 10, you want to get to 0. And so kind of playing whack-a-mole, if you will, to keep that number low, I think is fun for the folks for a lot of the folks that enjoy the retail operations role.
Are they working with the sales team beforehand to like go through proactively, here's the things that I've seen that were in issues, make sure you do this, or how does that work on like carefulness versus carelessness?
I think it goes back to the phrase that we use a lot, is the defense versus hospital, right? So our thing is going to hit that list due to no fault of anyone and no negligence. Yes. But I think in stores that really have this figured out, the REM or the leadership in the store has created a culture of what is okay, what is not okay. How do we understand our processes, specifically the more complicated processes, like maybe our phone order process, where there's a few steps. Mm-hmm. And so you could get caught in a world where you're really good at fixing the problems when they come up and get a great result, or you could go out and train your HFCs, train the sales team, so they completely understand it, so you don't have any cleanup to do. So certainly, I think the folks that win this more often than not are likely the folks that are the most proactive and most engaged with the sales team in the store. And I think Kelly has some call outs there too.
Yes, I would 100% agree. It's the ones that are very engaged, have conversations every day about expectations, teaching and training all the time. I mean, we have Andrew in Raleigh who has won Gandalf 6 times. It's obvious.
Last year in
2023, he won 6 times. So half the year he won, and you can tell that he's just engaged. You've got Melissa who won 3 times. Heather and Tina both won 3 times. Like, it's just obvious that they're engaged and involved in everything in their store. And then we even have, now we've created a AMRO award that we call it the GAMRO. And so Melanie in the East has won that. We started that in August, and she's won it 3 times already. It's just all about engagement with the team.
Yeah, I love that. That's super cool. I mean, and it takes, you said it's fun, and competition can be fun. And by the way, you got to follow Andrew on LinkedIn. He's a fun follow on social media, especially when he wins an award.
So sticker creator too.
Yes, he is.
Oh yeah, that's good stuff. So what else, Will? What else have we done to kind of invest in the culture in 2023 that you'd point to?
Yeah, well, I would say probably my highlight from 2023 was us being able to get all of the REMs back in one room. And I don't think that happened since before COVID, maybe before my involvement with retail operations. So I know last year we had kind of a half in Fort Mill, half in Four Oaks, but we didn't have everyone together. And so we planned everyone in Fort Mill, and we thought it was going to be good, but I could not have predicted how good it was going to be. And you have folks that had developed relationships over the chat that had never met each other in person, and folks that talked on the phone regularly that had never met each other, or getting to meet some of the sales audit team or the inventory team, that folks that had helped them out of a jam that they had great appreciation for had never met them in person. And so, like a lot of Broad River, meetings, we started with gratitude. And I think we felt, and we kind of joked about it, that at the end of gratitude, if we had ended the meeting for that day, it would have been a good day.
Wow. Because
the vulnerability, there was tears shed. It just made you, I was in the back and just like holding back tears, and you kind of just like beam with pride that you're involved with a group of people that has this much like camaraderie and support of each other.
And really want to do a good job, care about the job, care about each other, even if they've never even met in person. So how many people were in the room? This was the entire retail operations team, I guess. Okay, so how many people were in the room, and roughly, and when did you have this meeting?
So it was just under 50 people, and we had it at the November 1st.
Okay, fantastic. And I guess there's great pride taking on some of the results that you'd had that year. Okay. And so what are some of the things that you guys did during this in-person REM Rx on November 1st?
It's similar to what the retail performance team would do. And it's less of giving you tasks and dreaded action items to take back to the store, and more of investing in you holistically and giving the team tools that hopefully will benefit not just their time with Broad River, but their personal life, their time outside of their maybe a future role that they'll have. Mm-hmm. And so I some of the topics we covered last year, I think we went through Stacy's principle versus preference, mm-hmm. which to me was one of the most impactful kind of just work sermons, if you will, that I've ever heard. In the in-person meeting, we spent a lot of time on Simon Sinek's Start With Why, and we talked about influence, right? So how do you influence people to do something without making them do it, or without having to be manipulative, or without having to be punitive to get them to do it?
What is one thing that you do to do that?
Well, Simon Sinek talks a lot about, appealing to the different parts of the brain, right? And how language and thought live in different parts of the brain. So if I tell you to do something, you may hear me and agree with you, but the feeling of that isn't connected. So everything has to tie to the feeling of, why is this important? Why is this important to you? Why does this align with what your values are? And that only comes if you understand and have a relationship with the person.
Perfect. Okay. We'll keep going. I cut you off. So influence training, principle versus preference.
Yeah. So we also took, so last year at the beginning of the year, we had a pulse survey, and we took some items from that of what they wanted to learn and what their focuses are, and how they were feeling. So with that, we talked about boundaries, and we did a whole section on boundary training so that they could take that back to not only their work life, but their everyday life as well, which was really exciting for them.
Say more. What is boundary training? So I can imagine someone listening to this saying, yeah. I don't know what Kellie's talking about. What is boundary training?
Yes. Well, creating boundaries between you, learning to say no.
Okay.
Or not right now, but I can help you in a little bit.
I got you. So how to professionally say no, or to set parameters on when you can say yes.
Yes,
exactly.
Great book recommendation. And of course, I've forgotten the title. I know the author's Britt Frank, and I think it's called The Science of Stuck. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the boundary training we got from that book. And it was interesting that some of the feedback we got from folks in that pulse survey is that they were getting all sorts of calls at home, or they were having to work late. And so they really felt like they were, staying well past their shift every day, picking up calls when they were home. And so it wasn't that we were asking them to work more hours, but they had a hard time kind of setting a boundary for their personal time, mm-hmm. or setting a boundary for folks that needed to, at some point, learn how to solve that problem for themselves without kind of being enabled through that problem. And so what that's allowed is folks just to go home and be with their families sooner when they should, or when they're off, they get to be off and not worry about the next call that's mm-hmm. going to come through.
So we'll put the link to that book in the show notes, The Science of
Stuck. The Science of Stuck
by
Britt Frank.
Britt Frank. Okay, got it. So and for a pulse, you've referenced this pulse survey. Mm-hmm. So for those who don't know, there's an engagement survey, which might be once every 2 years or so, full bore survey to every memory maker or every employee in a company, a lot of questions. And the pulse survey is more of an interim in between the engagement survey. And I think we did that at the beginning of last year, right? Just mm-hmm. to kind of take the pulse on how we're doing. Yep. And so were there some call outs that you guys heard other than something that precipitated the boundary training?
I think we touched on it all. It was making sure that they had that one-on-one training time, the time that the AMROs could provide. And one of our responses to that is we retooled a little bit of that role, looking to remove some of the inventory responsibilities off the AMRO plate so they had more time kind of shoulder to shoulder. We talked about the boundary training and then influence, right? So this idea of when someone doesn't do something the right way, do I get frustrated? Do I get frustrated about it? Or can I respond in a way that hopefully mitigates it from happening again? Mm-hmm. And that's unfortunately, I think, a common challenge that a lot of REMs have things don't, oftentimes they're doing the cleanup, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're doing the cleanup you maybe become biased to get frustrated when you're constantly cleaning up the mess. So how do you get proactive and not have that turn into resentment?
Okay. So I just want to go through. So you've got the career pathing in retail operations. You may come in as a retail experience coordinator, or you could come in or get promoted to a retail experience manager. You can then get promoted to a senior retail experience manager. You can then get promoted to an associate manager of retail operations, or manager or director, associate director, what have you. So did I miss anything on the career pathing and the roles within retail ops?
We do have one role that's in between the retail experience coordinator and the manager. It's the retail experience specialist.
Okay.
So that's somebody who could be in the REC position, ready to move to REM, but because of no store openings or anything like that, we can't promote them to their own store. So we get that RES position so that they kind of get best of both worlds. They're still hourly, but they get bonus as an REM. So, and then when something opens up in that area, we can immediately promote them.
Got it. Well, we do have 2 new stores opening up in 2024, one in Rock Hill, one in Aiken. Do you anticipate, and I want to talk about hiring and recruiting, do you anticipate promoting folks from other stores into those 2 stores? Is that how you kind of make it all synchronous and have a new store operate smoothly? Or, because I know that's what we did in Salisbury this past year, right? Or do you hire from the outside and then put them into an existing nearby store?
I think we will initially speak to all of our REMs that are local for those stores and see if there is interest, because it does make it much smoother when we do open a new store. But that may not be the case, just depending on where they live and if that's going to be viable for them to drive there. So from there, we'll go outside the company if we need to.
Okay. And so when you go outside the company, where are you looking?
Our recruiting team is amazing. Absolutely amazing. They are, I can't even say enough about how amazing they are. So they do all the hard work for us. They find us the best candidates. And then we get to sit down with them and do interviews. And it's just, I can't tell you enough about how they just find the best people.
Yeah. And we got to make sure they're the right culture addition, because you got to be protective of this culture, the Wizards and everything that you guys have going on here. Okay, so I want to bring you guys back, because there's more stuff I want to talk about here, like on KPIs and projects that we completed and moving forward. So we'll put a bow on this episode, bring you guys back for a second one. But anything else with regards to culture? I know did you talk about AMRO captaincies or the REM? We talked about the REM chat or the knowledge base. Will, anything else you want to touch on?
Go for it, Kelly.
Yeah, so we have an REM chat that we use through Teams, and it's just an amazing tool for our entire team because everybody participates. If you have any questions or concerns, you can just put it in the chat, and somebody is always working. Somebody is always available to answer, and you don't have to worry about, my AMRO's is off today, I can't get this answered. No, somebody is available, and because we have all that tenure and knowledge in our team, it's just absolutely amazing. And it's also a lot of fun because sometimes we just, we have jokes and we celebrate, anniversaries and birthdays, and just it's a lot of fun.
There's nothing more exciting than somebody new joins the Wizards team. They've been with us for a few days. I'm sure the first message they send on the Teams chat, maybe they're intimidated and it's like, hey, maybe this is a stupid question, and then within seconds, someone else gives them a really thoughtful, concise answer, and we just get to sit back and watch that magic unfold. So that's part of the benefit of the tenure on the team, but it's not just tenure. It's folks that want everyone else, folks that want everyone else to do a good job as well. It's
like the message board for the team or the digital water cooler, if you will, but it seems like it's really that connective tissue that is binding you guys together and answering questions, supporting you when you need support, or if you have an issue that you're dealing with. And a rising tide raises all boats, right? So kudos to you. You guys want to come back next time and we'll talk a little bit more, finish up our conversation?
Of course.
Sure.
Of course.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. Hey, that's part 1 of our Wizards series here with Will Luke and Kellie Jones. Thanks so much for joining us here at Stories from the River. Try to bring you fresh new content, really now twice a week. So join us next time. We'll come back with part 2 of the series with Will and Kellie. Thanks so much.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.